Good morning. I am Steve Weber, and welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show, being broadcast here on Spirituality Gone Wild. And we're also broadcasting on the American Gumption YouTube channel and the American Gumption Facebook page. So thank you for following. Thanks for tuning in. Excited to have a Tuesday, January 5th show with you all today. All righty. So today is January 5th. It's the second show of the year, show number 102. Kind of nice symmetry that we started the new year right at the 101. Finished 100 shows in 2020, and now here we go for the next 100 shows. Alrighty, so today I have guest Paul Sterling coming to join us. Paul is also a host, co-creator here on Spirituality Gone Wild, and he is a relationship coach. He is an author. He is the author of the book, Argue Less, Love More. He has a great story, went up to Alaska, fished for 17 years, and then kind of, started on the path of, self-discovery or self-improvement, and Tony Robbins and all kinds of other people that he went and worked with and for. And so anyway, great story. Excited to talk with Paul, coming up at about 15 past the hour. All righty. And then the monologue, going to continue what I started yesterday when I did the second segment, when I did a replay of Kristen O's reading that she did. And her very first question out of the box was, do you have a woman in your life? And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't have a very good answer. So anyway, I'm going to talk about a special relationship, who that partner for me looks like. And so I'll sort of throw that out there in terms of some of the outlines of what that relationship will look like. And maybe it's coming, as Kristen said, maybe it's like right around the corner. Who knows? Here we are on a journey. All righty. So I'll do that coming up after our special segment on Tuesday. Hint, hint. I'll let you figure that out. All righty. Now, tomorrow we have Dina Brown Mitchell joining us. And I met Dina just about a week or two ago. And Dina has her own, unique story. Her story is one that's sometimes people come in like Paul and who's going to be our guest today. And Paul's story is like rock solid in terms of what he's been doing and, how he got to where he is. Dina's is in this real, kind of the tipping point place right now. So we don't know how it's going to end up. But what happened briefly is, COVID hit, and she 4 days later, in the middle of March, when it all kind of finally went crazy, she ended up shutting down $1 million business that she had. And within 4 days, she laid off her staff and shut up shop and opened a nonprofit and is, transitioning to a new for-profit business. And so she'll share her journey along the way. And her story goes back 20 some years, when she, blah, blah, blah. We all have a story. So she's going to share it. It's, and so anyway, I appreciated her, the fact that this is kind of a raw story. It's still developing. And so I'm very, very excited to have her join us tomorrow. All right. That's tomorrow. And then Thursday. Now Thursday's an odd day, not odd, but Thursday, I don't have a guest, and I think I'm going to not do a show, but I don't know that for sure. And I've got something scheduled for the afternoon that I got to go and take care of. So Thursday might be one of those days that I just don't do a live show. And I said at the beginning of this year that I will be doing probably an average of 4 live shows a week rather than 5 live shows. So that is the plan. So we'll see. I'll announce tomorrow whether what exactly is happening on Thursday. And then Friday, Doug Nielsen is going to join us, and we're going to have a conversation on Viktor Frankl. 10 years ago, I met Doug when I joined the National Speakers Association, and he was the president of the Mountain West chapter, and I had become a new member and a new board member of the chapter. And so Doug was the first president when I was a brand new board member on there. And he gave us a book on Viktor Frankl, and I read that book. And Doug has been like a huge Viktor Frankl fan, so I invited Doug to come join us, and we'll talk about the life and wisdom of Viktor Frankl. So that's going to be a fun conversation on Friday. Alrighty, that's what's coming up. So tomorrow, Dina Brown Mitchell. Thursday, to be announced, and Friday, Doug Nielsen joins us for the conversation about Viktor Frankl. Alrighty, now that means what's today? Is it Tuesday? Brandon Schaefer, welcome. Brandon Schaefer's in the house.
Steve Weber, the man,
Tuesday.
What's up? What's going on? Hands up. Hands up. Surrender. Surrender.
Happy New Year, brother. How you doing, man?
Hey, man. Happy New Year to you, too. Doing all good. Keeping busy. And glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
What is going on? What do you got on your mind this Tuesday?
Oh, man. I am tuned up, torqued. I'm like twisting a towel here. I'm like, what am I gonna tweak out here? And what I'm thinking about today, and the first thing that I said to my wife as I was walking out of our bedroom is, be marvelous today. Be marvelous. Like, marvelous is that word that you hardly hear anymore. When I was a younger kid, I used to hear it I used to hear it a lot more, but now nobody says marvelous. So be marvelous, be outstanding. And there's 3 things that you can do to be marvelous today. And have a good attitude, right? Prepare and put forth maximum effort. Attitude, preparation, effort. Attitude, preparation, effort. I talked about it yesterday. I'm going to talk about it every day this year going forward. Attitude, preparation, effort. They all go hand in hand. They cost $0.0, and they're going to make a big impact in your life. So
beautiful. Whoops, wait a minute. I didn't mean to do that. Hold on a second. Let me bring you back here. Where are you? All right, there you are. Sorry.
It's like the Gong Show. It's like the Gong Show where the guy comes out with the cane or whatever.
All right, get out of here, Brandon. That's all you got. You're done. You'll see you next week.
Oh, man.
So I wrote on my intention for the day. I have an intention for the day, and I write it down. And I wrote, I didn't write marvelous, but I like marvelous. I wrote, find joy in everything I do. And yep. I think that's kind of close to marvelous. But I like marvelous. Tell us just a little bit about marvelous. What were you thinking when you came up with it? Yeah, we don't talk about marvelous so much anymore.
Oh, man. Steve, when I wake up in the morning, I usually just like feel something and whatever. And I usually just take 2 seconds to write down a quick note for my family. And I've been posting more and more of them online as well. And people seem to like them. It's a handwritten note, but I don't know. It's just a word that came to me. And it's just, I'm always thinking of like, what can I do today to make an impact? What can I do to make an impact in my own life? What can I do to make an impact and help somebody else in their life? Because I think everyone needs that little spark of hope. And I see so many people, they just have a little bit of mud on the outside. They just need a little bit of shine or someone just to say, hey, listen, just try it this way. You can do it. And they just become that shining star. Right now it's difficult. I think everyone just needs that little glimmer of hope, man, that little glimmer of change. And I leave it up to someone like yourself or myself or anyone else out there to provide that little moment of hope. I know for me, like, I lost that hope, and someone came into my life and was like, well, it wasn't just one person. It was multiple people came in and said, Brandon, listen, we believe in you. We believe in you. And it doesn't matter if you were successful before and then you failed and now you're trying to get successful before, or if you're successful now and you just want to continue being successful. Like, it's a daily 7-day a week, 365 day a year mindset that we need to get into in the morning time. And that's why I love your show 5 days a week. I just heard you may go down to 4. Man, you got to keep it at 5. Steve, you got to go to 7. You got to go to 7. I know it's tough.
Maybe we're going to do replays on those times. We're going to do best of shows. I'm not sure. We're going to, we're going to keep it going. We're going to keep the energy high. But doing I did 100 shows in 5 months, so 20 per 20 per month for the first 5 months. And so I said, I'm going to do 200 shows in this year. So that comes out to like 16 per month, roughly, or one a week. And, anyway, so we'll see how it goes, but I'm having fun and I love it. And it's just, anyway, we'll see what happens.
Dude, you do a great job, Steve. Keep it up, man.
Thank you.
Spin this into a podcast, and then you can create that duplicate content right out of the gate. And there's so much, man. I know I get a lot from you. You have great guests. I know it's difficult keeping track of guests and getting people on and everything else like that, but you do a great job. Keep it up,
Thank
man.
you.
That's my motivation for today.
Thank you. And one last thing is I have a new regular guest who's going to join us about once a month. And she's going to talk about, health and exercise and nutrition. And so it's going to be that kind of a thing. And I said, I want to make a song for you. And I said, here, let me show you what I did for Brandon. And I played her song. She goes, oh, no, that's a little bit too far out for me. And so anyway, we picked a different song for her. So I just wanted you to know that I
Cool.
thought that, you were a perfect example of like, here's the kind of song you have to introduce you. And she was like, we're going to tune it down just a little tiny bit. I said, all right, we do whatever our guest host wants, whatever our guest.
What's her first day coming on? What's her first day?
We're going to talk today and we're going to decide that, but it's going to be on Wednesdays and it's going to either be once a month or maybe twice a month or once every 3 weeks, something like that, some kind of a rotating schedule. So
Cool.
All
Well,
right.
the three of us will have to get on and chat. I don't want to hold you up anymore, but the three of us will have to get on and chat. I love fitness, health, all that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
All this stuff is important. Starts with mindset, but then you got to take care of the body, the mind, the spirit. It's all connected.
100.
All right, man. Have a great day. Thanks, Brandon.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Bye.
Okay, bye. All right, Brandon in the house. As usual, on Tuesdays, we always like when Brandon joins us because it's a burst of energy. We went a little longer on that segment than normal, but hey, that's all right. Hey, it's my show. I can do whatever I want, right? If I want to hang out with Brandon for an extra minute or two longer than normal, let's just do it. All righty. So let's jump into the monologue at this point. And I'm going to talk about special relationship. Not special relationships, but special relationship. And this is a spin-off of what happened yesterday during the second segment of the show when I replayed the reading that Kristen O did with me when I appeared on her show, on her podcast or her broadcast about a month ago. And so she did a reading and so, she asked questions, and the very first question out of the gate was, "Do you have a special woman in your life?" And I didn't quite have the answer. The answer is no. But I have lots of people that are possibility, and I definitely have an image of what the right person would be. So today I'm going to share that image of what that special person, what that special relationship might be like. Alrighty. So first thing is it's going to be someone who's on their own journey of awakening or self-discovery. I've been on this path for about 10 years now. And so it would, as a foundational thing, that person would also be on their own journey, whatever their journey looks like. Hey, we don't have to make judgment of that. But it would it would be someone who's at least on their journey. They've gone and they've already done a lot of their own work in that department. So we'll just leave it at that. They would be an excellent communicator, both probably written but more importantly, verbal. They're curious, open-minded, lifelong learner. That's the kind of, person that I'm attracted to. Independent. I talked about in that same segment yesterday with Kristen, being the lone wolf or I talked about it during yesterday's show, at least being that lone wolf and realizing that, I don't need to be the lone wolf anymore. I've proven that I can survive that way, but it's like kind of survival. It's like, you're always like looking around and you're never quite, you can't, enjoy the ride quite as much. And so anyway, but so I've been independent. I've been hyper independent. The person that would probably be a good match would be someone who also has their own independence, but is also probably someone who, or I should say, someone who is secure and confident in who they are as a person. And specifically, the reason why I mention that is that, this show allows me to meet lots and lots of people. I love meeting people. So if someone was not secure and confident in themselves, they might misinterpret, the communications that I love having and meeting with new people on a regular basis. So that's that. Healthy lifestyle, aware of what you consume, and that's consuming both, what you take into your body, but also what you take into your mind, and spiritually what you're taking in. So consumption is a really important part. I wouldn't want to be out of sync in that department where, someone wants to consume stuff that, I go, what? I don't think I want to consume that kind of stuff. So sharing that consumption process would be a fun thing. Along with the healthy lifestyle, active, again, I'm not the most active person, but I'm certainly, I want to go. I want to be out on the road, moving around, doing stuff. And so that kind of an idea. And speaking of that, willing and able to be somewhat nomadic lifestyle for the next 4 to 7 years. This is where, I'm going to lose probably most 99% of the possible people out there, women, because, hey, it's kind of a crazy thing that I'm planning to do, go out and live on the road for the next 4 to 7 years. Now, maybe that person has a base and that base becomes, where we would launch off from. And that would be a cool thing. And I don't need to be out there like every month of the year, but I need to be out there like, on this regular basis for the next, the next multiple years as I'm doing this. And so it would be fun to share with a person, and it would be, be the ideal thing, right? Share with a person, and then if there's a base somewhere, that would be perfectly fine too. So we'll, but if you're just planning to like kind of stay put and, anyway, that won't work. All right. I see my special relationship partner as a business partner. And so, someone who complements what I'm doing with this show, and someone who I could complement what they're doing in their, with their life's work and what their purpose and being is. And so I see those things kind of as a nice match, like maybe a left-handed, right-handed glove type of a fit. And what that looks like, I don't want to define too much, other than just say that there's a complement and so, an enhancement that way. But, in at this phase of my life, this career path, this work that I feel like I'm doing, destined to do, American Gumption, that's going to be the primary thing. So sharing that with the special relationship person would be the perfect thing. And then the last thing I want to say about it is family. Healthy relationship with family members, and that would be, that just, it's the environment that I come from and feel like is important that way. Now a little bit of a, like if a woman has a bunch of kids and a bunch of grandkids and is all like if they're like front and center in terms of their life, then I think that then I probably not a good match and fit for that person, just because I can't see myself, just like plopping into that type of an environment. So it could be someone who never did have a family, or it could be someone who has a family and, has a healthy relationship with them, but they're off doing kind of their thing, and they all want to keep together and, keep connection, but probably not on a, like a daily and weekly basis, just because of the logistics of what I'm planning to do. So that's sort of how that fits in there. So that's kind of the, a quick vision of what I'll just throw that out there and see where it goes. So anyway, that's that. All right. That's the special relationship monologue for today. And, I think there's more that I could add, but let's just leave it right there at that. Alrighty, now our guest is not here yet. So we're supposed to have with us Paul Sterling, and I'm not sure why he's not here. I did message him yesterday, and with the show link, we had this confirmed, and so I don't know what exactly is going on. So oh my gosh, here he comes. He's showing up right this minute. Here he is. All righty, very good, perfect. All right, well, let's go ahead and welcome Paul Sterling to the show.
Good morning.
Hi, Paul. You made it. I was just like wondering, I don't know if he's going to show up. I don't know. Well, what the heck? There goes our relationship.
There you go. Well, yeah.
Hey, glad you're here. You're getting up early though. It's okay because I remember when we talked about this, I said, oh, by the way, it's 7 to 8 a.m. West Coast time. And you were like, oh boy, I got to set an alarm clock. So,
I did set the alarm clock. The alarm clock went off at 6:30. I said, oh, I'll just nap for another second because I didn't sleep really well last night. And then I wake up, I went, oh no. So good morning. Good morning, world.
Good. Hey, thanks for being here. So here's the way I'm going to let you catch your breath because I have a couple of things that I typically like to take care of when a guest appears for the first time on the show. And there's two things. The first is that I like to read a little bio that kind of lets people know who you are. And then I have a song that I play, and it's for first time guests. And so if you come back to the show, you won't get the song ever again. So it's like kind of a one-time deal. So it's kind of a special thing. So you get to sit back for a minute and just bask in the glory of who you are and then listen to some good music. You okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
All righty. So here's who Paul Sterling is. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your relationships. When your relationships fall apart, so does your life. Paul Sterling went from being a commercial fisherman in Alaska to a sought-after couples coach and an international public speaker on love and relationships. He is the best-selling author of Argue Less, Love More. That's his book, Argue Less, Love More, which was number one. Oh, here it is. There's the book, Argue Less, Love More, which was number one with both couples and counselors. His video, Tantra, Exploring Sacred Sexuality, has been viewed more than 6 million times on YouTube. 6 million times. And he didn't even know about it. Like somebody said, hey, Paul, you're over 1 million views so far. And you're like, what? Anyway, Paul was also, here's like kind of a whole list of things that Paul did. He was a delegate for Soviet American Peace Dialogue. Tony Robbins hired him as a coach to teach his inner circle. He has taught compassionate communication skills to the professors and staff at Naropa University. And Paul has taught prison inmates about the power of communication to turn around their lives. Additionally, he has led classes around the world from Hawaii to Hong Kong, Alaska to Mexico, Bali to Croatia, and all around the USA. Paul helps couples from around the world communicate better, clear up misunderstandings, resolve ongoing conflicts, and get their needs met so that they can deepen their intimacy and go from feeling ignored to being adored. Ignored to adored. That's pretty good writing, man. You must have hired a professional writer to write that. That's excellent stuff there. Anyway, Paul Sterling, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Now, can I play that song, and we'll get that out of the way, and then we'll chat. Okay, good. Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a broadcast before, Paul?
Absolutely not. This is a total first time here.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, welcome. Hey, before we get into it, let me just do one more little announcement. The Courageous Love Show. It's 2 times a week right here on Spirituality Gone Wild, Sunday afternoons at 4:05 Pacific time, and then Thursday evening, 6:05 Pacific time. Do I have all those times correct?
You have the times correct.
Awesome. Very good. So what do you do on your show? Tell everybody what happens on your typical show.
Well, Steve, let me give you the big picture. The quality of your life is the quality of your relationships. And when the relationship falls apart, I mean, you said that. So does your life. But the thing is, most people have never learned relationship skills. So if you want a remarkable relationship, you need remarkable relationship skills. So if if you're going to be a dental assistant, you might spend 4 years getting your degree before you ever set foot in an office. But anybody can get in a relationship. No degree, no nothing. And it's one of the most difficult things we'll ever do. So what I do is help people understand what are the skills you need and what do you need to do about it to make a relationship remarkable. So it starts with, if you think about in the beginning, and I've got some slides here. I can share my screen or not, but in the beginning of a relationship, it's easy to win, hard to lose. So you can bring home, like, here's a little crystal, but you can bring home a rock and you give your partner a rock and they go, oh my God, a rock. They call up their girlfriends. He brought me a rock, and there's immense gratitude. And then as the bell curve, so that's the beginning of a relationship. And then the bell curve starts to turn and go down. We start to take each other for granted. And then it becomes easy to lose and hard to win. And then there's a point where it's a point of no return. So what we want to do is be able to stay in a state of gratitude versus taking each other for granted. And to do that, it's an ongoing muscle. In the beginning, we're always making deposits in the relationship account. So the deposit that you think about a bank account, what do you do on a day? So we talked a little bit about this before when you and I were just on the phone, but you make deposits in your relationship bank account on a daily basis or withdrawals. So Steve, if you stop making deposits in the bank and you continue to write checks, what ends up happening eventually?
No more money. No more checks bounce.
Checks bounce, and then what do? What's the bank do?
Off.
The account closed.
Account closed. Yeah.
And so in relationships, it's the same thing. We either making deposits or withdrawals. If we make too many withdrawals, it's account closed. Yeah. And so what do we do to make deposits on a daily basis? What do you do to find out your partner? There's 5 different love languages. So do you speak any other languages? Just English?
Just English.
Poquito Espanol, so I've worked around the world, and so I speak a tiny bit, like 10 words of this and that. I speak a few words of Russian, and I worked in Hong Kong, so some words of Chinese, and so what happens is people speak different love languages. So 5 love languages: touch, time, talk, gifts, acts of service. So touch, how do you let people know that you love them? Is sometimes they love to be touched. Some people don't. So if their love language is touch and you're not touching them, they feel like you don't love them. Mm-hmm. If it's time, are you spending time together? Now, time right now might be the opposite. People have spent way too much time together, with all the lockdown and everything. A month in COVID is like, there's a thing, dog years. So when you have a dog, 1 human year is 7 dog years.
Right.
So 1 month of COVID is like a normal year or 2 years of a relationship.
Right. And now we've had 8 or 9 months of COVID.
So it's like, people in this year, it's almost like 10 years of time together.
Yeah.
That's how much, and it's some relationships have gotten better than others, better than ever, and others have been wrecked.
Right.
Because of COVID. So time together, then talk. So it's like, touch, time, talk. If you don't talk to me, if you don't tell me that you love me, then I don't feel loved. And I'm a pretty much of a talker. I'd imagine you're a talker too, because that's what you do for a living. So if people stop talking to you, you might not feel loved anymore.
That's right. That's right.
And then going on to gifts, and if you give little gifts or big gifts, does that make somebody feel loved? And some people it does, and other people go, forget gifts. I want you to touch me, or I want you to talk to me. I want you to do the other thing. You can't buy my love. And the last thing is acts of service. So acts of service can be you cleaned out my car, you did the laundry, you did dinner. What are the ways that you make your partner feel loved? Because underneath it all, what we're trying to do is let them know that we love them, that you matter to me.
And each one of those gifts or each one of those styles would be basically a deposit in the bank account.
Right. So if you're going to deposit in the account, you want to deposit in the big way. So if your love language is talk and I do touch, it's like a little deposit or no deposit at all. Especially when you've got limited time, you want to make sure that you're depositing in the way that the person wants it. You're speaking their language. Does that make sense?
Do you find that most people that you counsel and that you work with are unaware of these different styles and languages or styles, love language styles, and once they hear it, they kind of go, oh my gosh, I can just easily do this. This isn't that hard, but they were just unaware.
Yeah. And in the beginning of a relationship, they tend to do all five. Right. So there's touch, there's time, there's talk, there's gifts, acts of service, the whole thing. And then as the relationship matures, and they tend to go to their one of choice. And it's like, he stopped telling me he loves me, and he could be going, I'm touching her. That's it. So it's like learning the different love languages, learning how to communicate in a different way, and going through, and there's 7 core skills. Well, let me see. Can I share the screen or not?
Yeah. You want to try it?
Yeah.
You know how to do that? Do I have to do it? Let's see.
No. Let me just see if I can share screen to monitor, share screen. Here we go. All right. Modern technology at its best. Can you see that?
No, I'm not seeing it.
Oh, down at the bottom.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So I know this is early morning and it's a lot to absorb here, but to make a relationship work, if you think about it now, you're on the East Coast, right?
Yep.
I was on the East Coast. I was in New York City a couple of summers ago, and I'm mostly a country boy, but I was in New York City, and the subways are a little overwhelming. If I remember correctly, I think there's 872 miles of track.
Wow.
I think I don't know what it was, 400 stations and 27 lines.
Wow.
Subway lines. Now, that's pretty complicated and overwhelming. So to find my way around, what did I need, Steve?
You needed a map.
Exactly. Thank you for playing along with me here. leading the witness, leading question. But so the subway was more complicated than I wanted it to be. But when I had a map, it was simpler than it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Without a map, it's impossible. So if you think about relationships, most people don't have a map. So what I wanted to do was, after doing this for almost 27, 30 years, something like that, I've designed a bit of a map. So in a relationship, we're going to talk about 3 core areas. So are you available? When you get in when you want to get in a relationship with someone, are they physically available? Are they mentally available? Are they emotionally available? And if you think about it, when you take a vitamin, there's something called bioavailability. How much does the body absorb of that vitamin? And when you get in a relationship, there's something called relationship availability. How much of you is available to be in the relationship? And if you've had bad relationships in the past and you haven't healed, you might not really be emotionally or mentally available. Or if someone's in a relationship, they're married, or they're in another relationship and they're having an affair, they're not physically available.
Right.
So it's number one is availability. And if you think about it, if you wanted to hire somebody, you get their resume. And because it's important. Now, if you're going to be in a relationship with someone, do you get their resume? And the resume talks about also their capability. So you can be really nice. So Steve, I'm a smart guy, capable guy. Obviously, for those of you who can see me, a handsome guy.
I don't. You weren't late because you had to, do your hair up this morning. That wasn't the issue.
Thank you. I could use that as an excuse, but it wouldn't go very far. All right. So, think about it. It's like if I came to you and said, I want to do a root canal on you, and I'll do it for half price. I have a drill I got at Home Depot, and I've got the Idiot's Guide to Doing Root Canals. Would you say yes or no?
Probably be a little bit nervous about that offer.
Because I'm not capable.
Your resume is no good.
Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to be capable. There are 7 core skills, and if I get a chance, I'll list them all. But first, I want to talk about what is it the skills need to do. So in a relationship, almost every relationship, people get their hearts broken. So what we're trying to do is learn or have skills that help us clear up the past. Because if you don't clear up the past, it's in the present. And what's that do to the possibilities for the future?
Cuts them loose. No good.
Nothing. So what we're trying to do is find skills that clear up the past, get you present, and create possibilities for the future. So are you available? Are you capable? So capabilities, I'll give you a couple of examples. Capable, number 1 is communication. And are you able to communicate compassionately so that you feel heard, understood, and valued, and your partner feels heard, understood, and valued? And then the second thing, and here's the big $1 million question for all of our listeners, and I'm going to land it in your lap, Steve. There's only one reason to be in a relationship. Do you know what that reason is?
Makes you feel good?
That's a subset of it. So thank you for that. It's to get your needs met. Now, when you stop getting your needs met, what happens? Relationship over. The challenge, though, is we have a culture of need shame. So what I mean by need shame is we are embarrassed or ashamed of even having needs. In fact, it's a big insult. What do we call people who have needs? We call them needy. Yeah. Now, needy, not a compliment, but hey, Steve, call me needy.
Paul, you're a needy person.
You are so right about that. See, like I have right here water.
Yep.
I need water. I need air. I need coffee. I need love, attention, affection. I have lots of needs, and making sure that I get my needs met is part of the relationship. And when I worked for Tony Robbins, he talked about 6 core needs that drive almost all behavior. And I studied with another guy, Marshall Rosenberg, who was the creator of nonviolent communication. And what I ended up doing is putting together the top 10 needs for all relationships. So What makes a relationship work is when we're getting our needs met. When the relationship falls apart, we're stopped getting our needs met. So that's what the skills are all about: clearing up the past, getting present, creating possibility for the future, and negotiating needs. So that's your second skill, is negotiating needs. Then you're going to have conflicts, so clearing up conflicts, all of that. So availability, capability, willingness. I don't know if you've heard of Brene Brown or not.
I have heard of Brene Brown.
Yeah. So the listeners, if you want to know about Brene Brown, she is got a lot of different YouTube videos, but she talks about shame and guilt and, all these fun stuff. But she also talks about courage. And so if your willingness is the third thing to be in a relationship, willing to do what? Willing to be courageous. Because one of the most courageous things we can do is to share our heart, to be open, to be honest, to be vulnerable. And vulnerability, well, especially for dudes, Steve, you are a dude.
Yes.
We're taught that vulnerability is weakness and to not be vulnerable. And the idea here is, if you're going to have a great relationship, it's based on vulnerability, openness, honesty. So, and compassion. So courage, vulnerability, compassion, that makes up willingness. All right. So is that making sense? You're starting to see a picture here?
Absolutely. And I will just say that I was so fearful and so unavailable in terms of vulnerability from a long ago traumatic experience, that I was incapable. So those things were over in the incapable part because of it. So anyway, but I fortunately I've grown a little bit here in the last 10 years. So we're the light bulb is going on, Paul.
Well, you can see what happens is this makes the invisible visible. This is the operating system that's going on behind the scenes. Now, in the middle of it all, and I'm sorry that you went through that trauma, and most of us have gone through having our hearts broken at some point in our lives. And that's a big challenge. So the thing in the center that's running the whole show is something I call your ROS. ROS stands for Relationship Operating System.
Oh,
so just like my cell phone has an operating system, my computer that I'm on has an operating system. It runs a show and it's invisible. And so it's made up of your habits, patterns, and beliefs. And so if 10 years ago you had your heart broken, most likely, or 20 years ago, whatever it is, you made up some belief about relationships. Women are, men are, relationships are.
Yes.
And
it was 50 years ago, and it was a 40-year secret that I finally, like, the light bulb finally went off on. It wasn't a secret as much as it was a blind spot.
A blind spot, a scotoma. Yeah. And so much of our operating system is created when we're little kids.
Yeah.
And so I have exercises that help reveal it. And so one of the simple things I'll do is, like, if you fill in the blank, I'm going to give you a sentence and you just add on to the end of the sentence. You ready to do a little quick work here?
I'm ready.
Okay. So if I'm open and vulnerable in a relationship, they will
reciprocate. They will also be open and vulnerable.
So do it again. If I'm open and vulnerable in a relationship, they will
be open and vulnerable.
No, do a different answer. Sorry.
Oh,
so you keep looking. You do like 2 or 3 different answers. So let's just try one more. If I'm open and vulnerable in a relationship, they will
love me.
Okay. So that, by the way, I love your answers there. A lot of times what happens is people will reveal, one of them will be, if I'm open and vulnerable in a relationship, they will leave me. Now I'm quoting not you, I'm quoting somebody else directly.
Oh.
And on the other side, if I'm open and vulnerable in a relationship, they will love me. So it's almost like we have these beliefs that are hidden to us. And until we do an exercise like this, we don't know what our beliefs are.
Oh, my answer 10 years ago would have been different. Try it one more time and I'll give you the right answer.
Sure. No. Okay. If I'm open and vulnerable in a relationship, they will
take advantage of me.
There you go. See, now that's like running the show. And I'm not saying that that's a good answer. I'm just saying that those are what are programmed in. And if we want to change our relationship, we have to change our programming.
Yeah.
So that's how that works. And let me just see if, oh yeah, I've got like the 7 skills here.
This isn't the first time you scribbled on that board, is it?
Like I said, I've been doing this for years, and I do 2 calls a week called the Courageous Love Show that you talked about. And the idea of each time we do the Courageous Love Show, the 7 core skills stay the same. If you like, you've got the Wheatie box behind you, I saw there, and I think I couldn't tell whether it's a basketball player, but any athlete, when you work out as an athlete, yes, you might learn some new plays here and there, but most of what you do is you do the basics over and over and over again, because under pressure, what comes out is basics. Yeah. So here's what the basics are for relationships. The basics are communication. You've got to learn how to communicate so that people feel heard, understood, and valued. So you're not in the world of shame, blame, and guilt. And if you look at right now, and I'm not going to point fingers and be politically incorrect, but our politicians are pretty miserable communicators in some ways, because it's all about blame, shame, guilt. Whose fault is it? And creating a lot of upset around America right now. Yeah. And we need somebody that brings us together. There's more courageous communication, feeling connected, where everybody gets to feel heard, understood, and valued. The second one is meeting needs. And I told you a little bit about that. And how do we go from feeling ignored to being adored? If I don't treat your needs as precious, you're not going to feel precious. Mm-hmm. And most women have never heard this simple line: honey, your needs matter to me. What do you need right now? How can I let you know that I love you? Because there's a huge difference, Steve, between the difference between I love you and I want you to feel loved by me. See, I love you is about who? It's actually about me, right? And how I feel. I want you to feel loved by me, but then I have to enter your world. I have to know what your needs are, and I have to know how to meet your needs in a way that makes you feel loved and adored. And I have to communicate in a way that you end up feeling heard, understood, and valued. If you're going to have any sort of relationship at all, there's going to be conflict. So one of the core skills is conflict resolution. Yep. This one, you actually talked about this a tiny bit, but wounds and triggers, some wound happened 40 years ago. Yep. And unless we heal the wounds, what happens when we get wounded, we either get bitter or we get better. And you must have worked on yourself to get better here. Yeah. And that's funny, because the wound, the result of the wound was conflict resolution was, I don't want to talk about it. That's how I dealt with it. Right. And that's how a lot of men deal with it. And it doesn't heal it, and it doesn't cause it to go away. But we think healing is avoiding, like, let's just not talk about it. Right. So it'll go away. Building trust. And there's 2 kinds of trust. And the easy one is, do I trust you? Will you keep your agreements? Will you have my back? Do you respect my boundaries? The other one, which is tougher, is, do I trust myself with you? Mm-hmm. Will I keep my boundaries? So what I just walked into is the world of codependence. When I end up in a relationship where I give up my word to myself, where I give up my boundaries, where I give up what's important to me, and I don't have my own back, that's when I've entered the world of codependence. That's where I stopped trusting myself in a relationship with you. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And I listened to a podcast last night that the expert in relationship and developing relationships was, if you don't have a good relationship with yourself first, you'll never be able to have a good relationship with someone else. That was kind of the core message that this person shared. So,
yeah, and it's a mix, because the thing is, you don't know how you're going to be in a relationship till you're in a relationship. It's like you go out to sea, you don't know whether you're going to get seasick or not until you're out at sea. You don't know how you're going to behave in a relationship till you are. All right, so trust, critical one.
Huge.
The 3 shades of intimacy. And most of the time when people think about intimacy, they're just talking about sex. So the 3 shades are emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, like the whole thing we talked about with the 5 love languages of touch, and then sexual intimacy. And that's where my video on Tantra and sacred sexuality, you talked about it, 6 million views, because people have not been taught how to touch. And when you're touching, it's a form of communication. So what do you want to communicate with your touch? Are you communicating, I'm distracted, you're not important, or are you communicating, I love you?
Yeah.
The last of the 7 skills is dealing with differences, difficulties, and decisions, the big D's. Do your differences drive you apart or bring you together? So is this all making sense?
Yeah, I like this a lot. And I like the way you talked about intimacy being emotional intimacy, touch intimacy, and then, of course, physical, sexual intimacy.
Yeah, it's those 3 different things. And a lot of times what happens between the gender lines, feminine, masculine, the masculine thinks if we're going to be touching, that's foreplay. And the feminine needs to be able to separate it out, because sometimes she just wants to be cuddled and doesn't want to make love, and needs to know that if I cuddle you, it doesn't mean yes. It means I just need to be held right now. So it's learning how to deal with that and do those different things. So, and then what happens is people can sort of rate themselves. This is the skill sheet where you go through each of those 7 skills and go, is it a superpower, a strength, a weakness, or your kryptonite? And if you want to have a remarkable relationship, like I said at the beginning, you need remarkable relationship skills. And this, if people took a picture of this, put it up on their refrigerator, rated themselves. When it comes to communication, where am I? Oh, it's my superpower. Getting my needs met. Oh, that's my kryptonite. And for me, I ended up leaving home at age 17, going to Alaska, being a rough and tumble commercial fisherman for 18 years.
Yeah.
And so talking about feelings and needs, that was not my strength at all. That was my kryptonite.
The fish didn't listen.
Yeah.
They didn't care. And the other fishermen, they didn't care. The fish didn't listen, and the other fishermen didn't care.
And we didn't want to know about your feelings and needs. Listen, and we worked a lot of times 18-hour days. Our thing was, why work 8 hours a day for someone else when you can work 16 to 18 hours a day for yourself?
Right.
And so it was a crazy world. And that's what I do is I work with couples from around the world. I have couples in India, in England, Canada, around the US, Australia, and we go through and look at it. And what happens when you have this map, Steve, is you get away from figuring out who the problem is, because there's 3 reasons, three reasons, and we'll switch. Let's switch to just us. We'll take that off the screen for a second. Unshare it.
Okay. There we go.
There's 3 reasons relationship coaching, counseling, therapy fail. So this is the exciting failure news. But reason number 1 is, if you don't agree on the problem, you won't agree on the solution. I'm letting that register for a second. So if you don't agree on the problem, you won't agree on the solution. Now, most people come in thinking that, what's the problem? They're going like, I'm here with my partner. My partner is the problem. And the partner going, what? I'm here with them. They're the problem, so there we go. So once you figure out what the problem is, a problem clearly defined is a problem half solved. And so that's part of what I do is I take people through a 45-minute process where we identify what is the problem, not who is the problem. And we get away from the shame, blame, and guilt to what skills do we need?
Right.
Because if we don't change our skills, we're going to still have the same issues.
I really like your last chart in that if it kind of takes the emotion out of it, because if you can see that, like, oh, the person has these skills which are very good, but they also have these one or two areas that are the kryptonite. Okay, that's where we're having all the problems. It's not like the person's a bad person, because they actually have some good skills, but it's just they have some areas that they haven't been aware of, blind spots. And by the way, I also had my own blind spots there, so it's like, oh, I'm not without fault. Oh, and actually that person has more skills than I do. So actually I need to step up my game, like just as much before I can start, asking them to step up their game. So yeah, brilliant. Whoops. You've disappeared sound wise. I'm not hearing you now.
Oh,
there we go.
There we go. I have a small sniffle and I blew my nose and to save the listeners.
Well, you did very good that way.
Very discreet. Wasn't that discreet? That's very cute. So yeah, having it visible so you can look at the chart and go, which skill do we need to work on? And I was with a couple 2 days ago, and this was a couple that were so triggered they were about to break up. Literally, the beginning of the conversation is like he's going to get a new flat and move out, and they've been married for years. And so within an hour, we didn't resolve. Let me be clear: it's not like a extra superpower, whatever. But within the hour, he'd gone from, oh, I'm going to move out to, oh, I see what's going on. Now I know what we're going to work on. And so it was a interesting way of looking at relationships. So it gets away from taking it personally. And they start to realize that, God, if I go and get in another relationship, if I don't improve my skills, it's still me. I'm still there. So the number one thing I said that causes the coaching to fail is if you don't agree on the problem, you won't agree on the solution. The second one, you may know this one. Have you ever heard WIIFM?
What's in it for me?
Exactly. What's in it for me? It's in the world of sales. What's in it for me?
Right.
So what I do is WIIFM, WEIT. WIIFM, what's in it for me? Because a lot of times people come into counseling or therapy because their partner made them.
Yeah.
So they're in there for the wrong reasons. They're not in there for what's in it for me. They're in there for my partner made me do it.
Right.
And if you don't, if you're not in it for WIIFM, you won't do WEIT. Sorry about all the initials, but that stands for whatever it takes. And changing, growing, you've had, an issue that you had with you for 30 or 40 years. It takes a conscious effort to heal it, to grow it. You need to know what's in it for you. And if you don't, you can just avoid it. And then the third thing is accountability and commitment. A reason that I did Bikram yoga. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bikram yoga. It's hot yoga. It's so.
I know hot yoga. I've heard that, but I don't know any more than just the phrase, what it is. Yeah.
Well, hot yoga is like, just picture doing yoga in a sauna.
Okay.
You're gonna sweat your butt off.
Right.
Now, I learned I think it's 26 moves. I learned the 26 moves. I did it for a couple of years, but I never would do it at home. I always needed my coach there, the yoga teacher, and the team of other yoga people before I would do it. Because without a team, you don't hit peak performance.
Yeah.
And if you want peak performance in a relationship, get yourself a mentor, get yourself a coach. And what Tony Robbins talks about is take decades and turn them into days. If you've got a mentor. So you're either cutting a path or you're following a trail. And that's what I help people do, is follow the trail, turn decades into days, and create a remarkable relationship. So those are, they can get a hold of me. You've flashed it across the bottom, arguelesslovemore.net. It's the name of my best-selling book.
Yep.
And
arguelesslovemore.net. So go ahead, go find Paul there, and lots of resources of information available, easy to get a hold of. There we go. And then the show 2 times a week, Sunday afternoons at 4:05 Pacific time, and Thursdays 6:05. So yeah, and so my original question was, well, what happens on the show? Do people call in? Do you have a guest? How does it typically work?
I have guests, and then we interact with the audience. It's done over Facebook Live, and it's done over StreamYard. So we go through different issues. Like we just went through New Year's resolutions for your relationships, and people can join. I actually have if they go and join my Facebook group called Love by Design Remarkable Relationships, they can watch all the back shows. All the videos are there, everything's there. And so my closing thought is, if you still love each other but are struggling to get along, you might just need a breakthrough. So Steve, have you heard of Jeff Foxworthy, the comedian? You might just be a redneck. Yeah. So I do it a little different. You might just need a breakthrough. So if you go to communicate, and the harder you try to communicate, the worse a relationship gets, you might just need a breakthrough. If, you want to have less drama, trauma, and upsets in the relationship and more communication, compassion, and intimacy, you might just need a breakthrough. And so that would be a first step. If people are interested in spending about 45 minutes with me, I do that complimentary, because I want to find out, are they somebody I'm willing and want to work with? Because if they're not, I'd rather go ride a mountain bike than be with someone who it's not fun to work with.
Right.
And they get to decide whether they want to work with me, because it's a big challenge. It's like the relationship gym. You come, I work with people for typically a start of about 10 weeks, and you're showing up once a week to the gym, working out, and you're building your relationship muscles in those 7 areas that we just showed you. So,
the process you're describing of whether you're a good fit for them and they're a good fit for you is almost, it strikes me almost exactly opposite what we do in relationships, because, we allow this emotional, physical kind of chemical reaction in our body to start the whole thing off. And there isn't any like there usually isn't like a whole lot of like, is this actually a good person for me? Is this someone who's going to be healthy for me? So interesting.
Yeah. Are they available? Are they capable? Are they willing?
We don't look at the resume at all. We just jump right into it. We hire them right away. They pass the audition.
I like the way you look. You might, because in relationships, this is I talk about, are you the catch? Are you the compromise? Or are you the catastrophe? And a lot of times we're very attracted to the catastrophe. And the catastrophe doesn't mean that they're a catastrophe. It means our relationship's going to be that way. It's like, do we have the same vision, value, goals? Are we headed in the same direction? Do we bring each other up or bring each other down? And I've been in all different types of relationships. I went, to become a relationship expert, it was not a straight line. I went through 1 divorce and 4 broken engagements, so it was either become a monk or become a master.
Well, very good. We've gone a little bit long. We'll wrap up here very quickly. The breakthrough for me came when it was about 4 years after I began the journey of like looking, kind of like starting to really clean out the closet in terms of, and I had kind of removed everything like in the first year, and I kind of had it like all like laying out on the table, but I didn't really know what I was looking at until a couple of years later when I went back. The coach again triggered me to like look at it in a way I didn't look at it. And that was the moment that I went, oh my gosh, it's been me. It wasn't them. And that was the moment when I look back now and I feel great joy. But at the time I felt like I felt a sorrow because I realized that there was lots of nice people that, you know, the path of destruction that I had left there. And I was, so I can look at that moment now as like great joy, but and it was great joy at the moment, like, oh my gosh, it's me. And then it was like, oh crap, it's me. Yeah.
If you're not part of the problem, it's hard for you to be part of the solution.
Yeah. So that was great. Now this has, so when I, when I was a speaker for the last 10 years talking about gumption and personal responsibility and the life lessons from the movie Forrest Gump, and I would tell all this brilliant stuff. And then people would say, have you ever met Tom Hanks? They would always ask that question. I'd be like, oh gosh, what does that have to do with anything that I just said? So I have a question that has nothing to do with anything you just said. And it's prompted by a conversation I had with my 92-year-old father this morning, because he wants to know, when you were fishing all those years, how many months of the year could you fish up in Alaska? I mean, was it too cold in the winter?
No. Well, we fished for king crab and then for tanner crab, and the tanner crab, we'd be fishing in January among the ice flows sometimes. It was horrendous. And we'd fish up until 20 knot. I'm not 20 knot. We'd fish up until 60 knot winds and 20-foot seas. And we're fishing off in Cook Inlet out of Homer, Alaska. And then by Kodiak and then down Chillicothe Strait a little bit. And so it's not exactly year round, but there's different times year round that you're fishing for different fish. Like the halibut fishery tends to be during the summer. The crab fisheries, August, September, and then it's all through the winter, out in the Barren Islands, and then down the straits into the Bering Sea, and so it was outrageous.
How many like when you left port until you came back, what was the typical time that you were gone?
Well, it depended. Now, when I fished out of Homer, Alaska in Cook Inlet, we could be, there's day fisheries. There was times where you'd be gone like for a week. And then there was times where I was gone for the summer, where we went down fishing for salmon. In southeastern Alaska. So we were gone all summer. And then came back up and, across the Gulf of Alaska, which, when I think of it, I had convinced my ex-wife it would be a great idea, because we hadn't seen each other, for her to fly down from Homer, Alaska, down to southeastern and come up through the inland waterway across the Gulf of Alaska and then back home. She was going to join us on the boat. And, that seemed like a really good idea at the time, but we got caught in bad weather. The boat almost sunk. We were going, it was one of these trips from hell. And at that point, I was the engineer, and the boat would be rocking so much that the water that had gotten in the bottom of the fuel tank got into the fuel line. It had settled in the bottom of the fuel tank and then got in the fuel line and was stifling the engines. The engines were going to stall. And if the engine stalled, we were going to die. That was a simple, because we were up in this scary area, rough weather. So I'd be down in the engine room, draining the fuel filters and keeping the engines going, and then run up on the bridge where my wife was and gave her a survival suit and said, okay, honey, hold on to this in case we sink. You're going to need this, and then I'd run back down in the engine room. And so there was plenty of interesting times out there where it was like life and death.
Wow. Well, we'll have to invite you back to talk more about that. But thank you for at least allowing me the one little bit of the Alaska part, just because my 92-year-old father said, hey, does he go out in the wintertime? So he had to know. So thank you, Paul. Well, this was fun. I'd like to, obviously this subject of relationships is one that affects all of us, and the learning is not something that you just do because we didn't, we don't have any instructions, or real teaching on it. Our parents, they gave you a few pieces of advice, but and then even in school, you didn't learn any of this kind of stuff. So anyway, I really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm sure your clients do. And people can tune into your show on, whoops, wait a minute. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted to do. There you go. The Courageous Love Show on Sunday afternoons at 4 Pacific time, or Thursdays at 6:05 Pacific time. So join Paul then right here on the Spirituality Gone Wild Network. So, all righty. Well, good. Thank you. Any last things you want to say about relationships to send us off?
Well, it's the same thing I've said throughout the show. Almost everybody wants a remarkable relationship, but to do that, you need remarkable relationship skills. So find yourself a mentor. If you look at any great athlete, any great peak performer, they all have coaches. And so I am a relationship and intimacy and communication coach. And that's what it helps you go to peak performance.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your vulnerability here, Steve, talking about yourself and your life and the show that you put on and getting Gumption out there.
Good. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. And we will see each other again.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Paul. Well, there you go. Paul Sterling, the relationship coach, Spirituality Gone Wild. His show is on, here it is one more time, Sunday afternoons and Thursday evenings, 4:05 on Sunday and 6:05 Pacific time on Thursday afternoons. All righty. Very good. So that's it, everybody. We will see you tomorrow. Let me just do a quick announcement of what's going to happen tomorrow. Dina Brown Mitchell will be telling her story of how she had to shut down her 7-figure business when COVID hit this year and started a .org instead. And on Friday, Doug Nielsen will be talking about Viktor Frankl, his life and his influence and his philosophies and teachings. And Thursday, not sure what I'm going to do. May not do a live show. We'll just have to play that one by ear. So that's it, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow.